Hi, I'm Jim Bergeron, pastor at Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Houston, Texas, and this is the sermon for the 25th Sunday after Pentecost in the A series, based on Matthew 25:14 through 30. Much economic misunderstanding happens when we see the world as a place with limited goodies in it. It's like one big pie, and everyone has a little bitty slice. And it's reasonable to assume that if I figure out a way to make my slice just a little bit bigger, then everybody else's slice is going to reduce in size. Therefore, to be honorable, I must not try to get more. And if I do, I will be considered a thief. It is the assumption that rich people are rich because they steal from poor people. That's a false assumption. You can't get rich by stealing from the poor. They don't have anything to steal. You get rich by outmaneuvering other rich people. Willie Sutton, the original person called Slick Willie, enjoyed a 40-year career of armed robbery. When asked why he robbed banks, he said, "Because that's where the money is. Here's your sign." Nevertheless, we're compelled to increase the slice of our pie because, in the prevailing opinion also, the bigger the slice of the pie that you control, the more you're blessed by God, by riches. Your status will be enhanced by your wealth. Either way, there's convenient rationalization available for poorness or richness, the talents that you are in charge of and how you handle them. Both viewpoints are common and inspire a variety of economic theories from capitalistic practical to communistic utopian. In many societies, the merchant class is unjustly seen as a lower caste. Actually, the merchant classes are some of the best contributors to employment, innovation, and overall prosperity. They make the flow of goods and services convenient. They bring together the craftsman and the consumer, the buyer and the seller, the grower and the eater. Economic civilization has been built on the backs of peasants with good agents. History has shown that the equalization of all resources, like the ideals of communism, simply doesn't work. Give everyone $100, and you will have 100 different outcomes in 10 years, ranging from starvation to millionaire. Equal opportunity is very real. Equalization of resources, not even possible. The good Lord knows I don't need another book. Nevertheless, I make an occasional trip to half price books. Sometimes I like to baffle an intellectual employee and will comment, you know, I've been through the whole fantasy and horror section of the store here, and I can't find anything by Karl Marx. The way the rich noblemen got around mistaken ideas, but social problems nonetheless, was to have their slaves handle their financial affairs. Slaves had no honor, so they had nothing to lose. The noblemen were insulated from the social consequences of their riches if some were to show up by claiming plausible deniability. The accountant did it. This little tidbit helps to give some context to many of the parables of Jesus that spoke to financial dealings and economic issues. And some rabbinic literature even suggests that burying your master's money was like insuring it with the FDIC. If it were to up and disappear, oh well, it would not reflect badly on the steward of the funds and would instead be seen as an unfortunate act of God. Some evil person saw and dug up the treasure trove. It's the responsibility of the slave to anticipate what the master wants and needs the most. It stands to reason that the closer you are to the master, the better you'll be able to do that. Fearing the master and viewing him in an adversarial position is not helpful. The discipleship, stewardship lesson here seems to be use what you're given, don't fear failure, trust the master, trust God. The slave who buried his talent wasn't necessarily a bad man. He did what he thought was the right thing. Given a vast treasure, an entire lifetime's wages, he's probably stunned and afraid. Never in his previous experience would he have had to deal with something like this. He wouldn't even know how to start using it, much less investing it or risking it. He's probably deeply grateful he didn't get saddled with 5 lifetime wages or even just 2 lifetime wages. A vast amount of spiritual counseling is centered not with bad people, but with people who are afraid to use the talent God gave them. They're afraid to move up to the next level. Doing that involves moving outside a comfort zone with pain and risk. We work hard to avoid changes. We play defense out of fear. Famous hockey legend Wayne Gretzky said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." The managers with the most talent didn't do hardly any work at all. Financial managers these days call it enjoying passive income. The one that worked hardest was the one talent guy. He dug a hole. He worried somebody might have seen that. He worried they might steal the buried treasure. He undug the hole to retrieve the talent. He cleaned it up. He presented it back to the boss. And he probably got ulcers from stubbornly worrying the whole time. He could have let go and let God provide the increase. Stubbornness can get in the way of effective living. Montreal newspaper once reported a conversation between Canada Coast Guard and a U.S. Navy ship. U.S. ship, please divert your course 15 degrees to avert collision. Canada, recommend you divert your course 15 degrees. U.S., this is the captain of the U.S. Navy ship. I say, divert your course. Canada, I say again, divert your course. U.S., this is an aircraft carrier of the United States Navy. We are a large warship. Divert your course at once. Canada, this is a lighthouse. Your call. We really have only one thing: our joyful dependence as a servant of Master Jesus, of God Himself. How do we perceive our relationship? Can you take risks in life based on your understanding of God? Do you trust Jesus? Do you know the Master of the universe? In birth order, first and second children enjoy a lifetime rivalry, each claiming to deserve more advantages and each claiming to be treated the most unfairly. For my money, the second child has it made because he's watched the interactions of the first child and parents every second of his life. He has watched the interactions and he can predict the probable outcomes of his behavior based on his observation. He understands parents differently and more strategically. For 25 years, Mom had a corner lot with a small business on a busy intersection. We fostered dozens of dogs and cats abandoned there, often injured, hungry, and suffering. Finally, we had to say, no more pets. We simply can't handle the expense and the emotional pain of keeping them alive, watching them die. But the children missed having pets. One day, second son Josh shows up with a baby German Shepherd. He's beautiful, precious, and puppy clumsy. First son Shane says, I've been asking for a dog for a long time. Mom and Dad said, no, they're going to be mad and make you take that dog back. Josh said, no, they won't. If you want a dog, just go and get one and bring it home. They will see it and fall in love. Bingo. The child knew the parent and trusted. Ultimately, the high talent servants know they have nothing, so they have nothing to lose. It's all the master's. His riches are investments in us. They'll reproduce on their own. Put your God given talents in a position where there is interaction with the world. They'll do fine. Just ponder if the master were here, well, what would he do? Well, he might risk his life on a cross. And then a resurrection? That's a gamble. It's never been done before. And then an ascension, which is like going away so he could be present forever. God is not going to discard his investments. The abundance of love and grace we receive should decondition us enough so we can work in the world of God's blessings without fear. The parallels between this passage and Genesis 3 are amazing. I was afraid and I hid myself, Genesis 3:10. I was afraid and hid your talents, Matthew 25:25. He drove the man from Eden, Genesis 3:24. Throw him into the outer darkness, Matthew 25:30. Still we protest, but we may lose it. Fact is, if we don't use it, we're going to lose it anyway. Just for kicks, we ought to remove the word talent and insert love or grace. It would contribute a helpful nuance to our understanding. We wouldn't be tied down by counting stuff, and we could jump for joy celebrating God's gifts. You bury love or grace, it atrophies and dies, a cold, dead, dark, and bitter husk. You give love or grace, and it multiplies at least double, usually 5 times, and the whole world gets better if you take just little bits of unused love and grace and give it to the folks who really crank out lots of wonderful love and grace, because then everything gets better. Everyone benefits, even the fearful, the do nothing grumps. The alternative is the only universe that the one talent service could recognize, the one that's infinitely expanding, eternally cooling, and forever slower and darker and darker. I was afraid and I hid in the Genesis beginning. But because of my master, I can be bold and trade in love and grace. Amen.